All right, we're gonna get started. For those who heard the little voicemail voice, this meeting will be recorded. So if you're not comfortable with showing your face, maybe just let me know. So usually we end up sharing some of the recordings, sometimes on YouTube, sometimes just internally or for people who weren't able to attend. If you're not comfortable with your face being on it, please just let me know on chat, either general chat or a private message, so then I can cover your face with a cute emoji. And we can still share the recording with people. So that was it for my like administrative announcements. Then I would like to welcome everyone to the ML5 workshop, an introduction workshop. So if you haven't coded before, please do not be scared. You came to the right place. And for those people who are not familiar with the AIxDesign Community, I started this community for people who are sort of somewhere in the middle between being creative and geeky and find themselves a little bit displaced at times. And specifically, there's obviously like creative coding and a lot of generative design as well. But especially when it came to AI and machine learning, I either had technical engineering friends, but they didn't fully get like the creative and design bits, or creative and design friends who were a bit, out of their depth sort of when it was about AI. So I started a community last year for other like weirdos that find themselves at the intersection, and we've grown quite a lot. And then organize a lot of events and content. And earlier this year, I was reflecting a bit on what we've done. And I realized I want to do a lot more like hands-on workshops where we don't just learn about things in talks or keynotes, but actually try to make stuff and get hands-on and sort of tinker around with the material. So very happy with this session today. Erik's been in the community from pretty early on. I don't remember exactly when you joined, Erik, but you've
quite
there.
long.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like you've actually been there
at least 2 years, I think. 1 year ago.
Yeah. Well, like that's definitely the beginning. So I think, exactly. You've been there from the start. So that's amazing. And so in your day-to-day, you're also a lecturer in like creative media. And so I'm really happy that you're here sharing this with us as a community as well. We also have Jota, who will be helping if people get stuck or more with the coding. So they will both introduce themselves quickly afterwards. So I want to get over to their side. If you have any questions, just pop them to me in the chat, and I will try to help the best I can. And have fun. And then Erik, you can take it away.
Okay, thank you. All right. Welcome to this workshop. And Nadia explained it exactly right. We're talking about technology, where technology meets creativity. It's a really interesting field, I think. And it's actually quite hard to find communities or even code examples or good code tutorials where those two meet. At least for me, it was really hard as a creative to learn about AI and machine learning. It took me quite a long time. But that's why I want to share this knowledge, and I'm giving workshops. In daily life, I teach at the Creative Media and Game Technology in Rotterdam. That's what I do. I really like the combining code with creativity. I'm quite curious about you guys. Of course, there are 3 topics going on here. There's JavaScript, which means web development. There's machine learning, which means artificial intelligence. And maybe some of you already know Python, but not JavaScript. So that could also be an angle for this workshop for you. So I'm curious, what do you already know and what do you want to learn? You can just type it in chat. I saw 2 people already want to understand machine learning a little better. 2 people actually. Combining machine learning with JavaScript. I'm going to the next slide. I'm going to show today's goals at least. Today's goals is to learn what is ML5 actually. The ML5 machine learning library for JavaScript. The goal is that you can work with it yourself after today. So that would be a great goal to achieve, I think. And the second goal is to connect it with your own game or user interface. And I think if you can do those two things, then the sky is the limit. And it's really not as hard as it seems. So I hope we can achieve both of those goals, and which will enable you to build your own machine learning applications after a few hours. Interested in understanding the basics of machine learning for creative coding. Okay, yeah, that's what we're going to do. So these are two simple goals. I also have two practice projects, the image detection game, where you have to find images with your phone. And there's a pose detection game where we pose for the webcam, and yeah, we can create paintings or control a game with our body pose. So that's what we're going to do. And we should have all aspects of machine learning and coding and game design in one project, which I think is quite interesting. Let's go. First of all, one question: why would you even do machine learning in JavaScript? I wonder if anyone has any idea about it. I mean, Python is the go-to language for machine learning. If you Google for coding something with machine learning, you will only find Python. But today we're doing JavaScript. I wonder if anyone has any idea why you would even want that. Or Nadia, maybe. What do you think?
Well, for me, the fun thing about ML5 is that that you can just do it in like a web editor, like Lich or P5, and so I can share it to someone really easily. Either to, like play with it as a user sort of, or to remake the code. So the fact that it's, exactly, people are saying also on chat, like that it's browser based. Rather than like locally installed with lots of like dependencies and problems, and you have a different computer, so it won't work for you. So it makes it a lot easier to sort of get going and share stuff with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So sharing is great. If it works for me, it works for you. But another thing, what Samantha says, it's browser based, so it means you can use the browser. The browser has so many options. For example, the camera, speaker, microphone, temperature, even a compass, which all give you data, and you can use all that data directly in an application, which is quite hard to do. If you build something in Python, it only works for yourself. But if you build something in JavaScript, we can put it online and everyone can use it. Not only that, but it's also quite private. So even if someone uses your app on their phone, they don't have to send all their private data to you. So the privacy is actually better than when you build something with Python, because then you have to send data to a Python server, which is not private. So there's a few actually quite good reasons to use JavaScript. And for me, the most important one is that it's just very easy to link it to your user interface or to a game. So there's already so much code to build good user interfaces. There's a lot of code to build games, and you can just link everything together, which I think is great. And building an app in Python is really a nightmare, especially if you want to build a game or an interface. That's just not an option, I think. So let's go on. Let's see how we're going to do that. Oh yeah, maybe it's good to know where ML5 comes from. Just very short, and TensorFlow is, I think, quite famous. It's it's Google's machine learning library, and it was in Python, but they also released a JavaScript version a few years ago, 4 years ago maybe. And actually, ML5 uses the TensorFlow library. ML5 is made by the same people as P5, which is based on processing, which is an artistic library. Processing is really used for very cool artistic stuff. And ML5 is really a mix of the two. So it makes complicated TensorFlow code more accessible and more usable for artists. if you learn ML5, you actually are also learning TensorFlow. So that's a really good thing as well. Once you get really to grips with ML5, you can say, okay, I'm going to ditch it. I'm going to go on with TensorFlow, and that will really still help you. So it's not either one or the other. If you look at the Ml5 GitHub, you will see lots of cool people who all have their own repositories. So you can get tons of inspiration from them. The most famous one is the left one. He's the Bob Ross of coding, Daniel Schiffman. He has lots of crazy videos about ML5. You should definitely find him on YouTube. And yeah, you can learn almost everything. Here's someone who says he has experience with Wackinator. That's really cool. I also started with Wackinator, and ML5 is quite a good replacement for it. You can actually build Wackinator yourself. So that's cool. Create interfaces for music production. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. I want to show a little bit about what we're doing today. And we're going to use models that are already trained. In machine learning, you often train a model to learn something. For example, learn to recognize a face or a pose or an image. And when the model is trained, you can use that model and then start recognizing images or poses or faces. And what we're doing today is we're using a model, one for poses and one for objects, which is already trained. We're not going to train it ourselves. We might do that in the next workshop because you can also do that with ML5. But ML5 is really good at working with pre-trained models. So you only have to download the model and then our code will use the model. That's what you see in this slide. Part 1, we download it, and in part 2, we do something with it, and in part 3, we get a prediction with a confidence. And these models actually have nothing to do with ML5. Those are just models that just exist on GitHub, and they are mostly made for TensorFlow. They could even be made in Python. It's just really independent of ML5, but it still works. You can, yeah, this isn't one of the examples that we're going to use, the MobileNet model. It's just good to know those models are independent of ML5. They just exist and ML5 gives us access to it. Right, any questions until this point? Also, I want to just throw anything in the chat that you want. I found some nice, cool examples of what was already done. There's a really cool YouTube channel called Made with TensorFlow. I'll click this link. Let's see what happens. Yeah, this is someone who uses the face mesh detection, which draws a mesh on your face. What actually happens is that the webcam image is analyzed and it is trained with lots of different people to learn facial features. And then it starts predicting those features on your face.
So now we're joined by a very special guest.
And once that happens, you can use those features. Let's find a good spot here. On the top left, you see the face mesh, which is predicted by the model, the ML5 model. And then you see this person uses those coordinates, in this case of the hand as well, and of the body. This is pose detection, to draw a 3D model. Even the background moves along, which is cool. So this is one, this is a pose detector. This is what we're going to do today. Once you get your detections from the ML5 model, you can do with it whatever you want. Okay. I had one more cool example. This is a developer, quite famous. I think she worked at Spotify, but she had some own personal private projects where she's also learning machine learning. So I think it's very interesting that you can see lots of creatives figuring out what they can do with machine learning. I like this one where she's detecting if she's running in front of the computer, and then she lets the landscape pass by, but only if she's running. I hope you can see she's on the left. You can see the pose detection. I don't know what this one is, the zoom. Oh, there's no movie. Oh, there is. Oh, it's for Zoom, actually. We could have used it today, a Zoom plugin. Eyebrows control how far you zoom in. And this one, control a web 3D game. Also by detecting poses, you steer the spaceship. And this 3D game is also made in JavaScript. So that's what's so cool about it. You can just link everything together. She has a repository where you can just copy paste all the code and run it on your own computer. I think that's pretty awesome. Right, one more example. Oh yeah. This is not such a clear slide, but what happens here is once you have JavaScript, you can also create Chrome extensions, which are also JavaScript. And that means your Chrome browser can continually run this code in the extension. In this case, the pose detection is used to see if you have bad posture. It even keeps track of how long you are sitting correctly. It's quite invisible. It's just an extension that uses the webcam, but for the rest, you don't see anything, except that you get a notification. So there's another way to use machine learning. So much for examples. Let's look at the ML5. Is anyone like, okay, this is cool, let's do it? Maybe you can throw some thumbs up. Is it possible in Zoom? I know you can do it in Teams. Yeah, okay. Nice, yeah, that's what I mean. If you go to ML5, this is the link. Maybe someone can paste the link in the chat. Learn.ml5. Maybe I can go there myself. If you go to the ML5 website, learn.ml5js.org. Sorry, double. And you go to reference or getting started, doesn't really matter. You can see on the left, this left column. Is this readable, by the way, for you guys? Should I zoom in? This left corner tells you all the different helpers they have, because ML5, what ML5 really does is it makes all TensorFlow models and algorithms accessible with example code. So you can use these helpers, a neural network, KNN classifier. Today we're going to look at all the image helpers. There's an image classifier, a pose classifier, body pics. You can click on it to see what it does. Body pics is quite a strange one. It finds areas of your body. I'm still not sure why you would want to use it. Oops. The image classifier we're going to do today. This just tells you what an image is. PoseNet is also what we're going to do today. It detects how you move in front of your camera. The Handpose is also really cool. It detects your hand and your fingers, and even in 3D. So this is quite amazing. Also, I want to say, even if today we do PoseNet, you will get enough knowledge to use all of these. So that's great. Face mesh. we saw in the example, it draws your whole face. There's also Face API, which is a bit different. It finds your face landmarks. So just eyes, nose, and mouth. Let's see what else is there. Style transfer. This is always funny for tutorials. It applies a style of one image to another image. This is like Snapchat filter. Snapchat actually uses this, so that's quite cool. You can just do it yourself. We're going to start with the image classifier. Let's just do it. I want to give you a few hand notes about JavaScript, coding in JavaScript. Maybe people already are familiar with it. Hands-on with the image classifier. If not, I just want to show this boring coding slide. Also for people who do know Python, but not JavaScript. There's one really strange thing going on. In Python, on the left side, you see code as you would expect it to run. You load a model, then you classify an image, and then you show the result, which makes perfect sense. And the problem is in JavaScript, it doesn't really work like this. The reason is that JavaScript cannot wait for loading a model, because JavaScript is also running a game or an interface in the back end, which means if it did nothing when the model was loading, the whole application or game would freeze. So to prevent this, we have to put everything in functions. And these functions are called when a model is loaded, for example. So there's a big difference in coding. We have to learn to put all our code in a function. And there is an order in the function. So first you load the model. When the model is loaded, then we can classify an image. If we did it in this way, classify an image, then we would not be waiting for the model to be loaded. So that would be a problem in JavaScript. If the left code was JavaScript, it would try to classify the image before the model was even loaded. So you have to get to grips with this part. Put your stuff in a function and make sure this function gets called when the model is loaded or when an image is classified. Okay, let's just see how it works. You can go to this link, copy link. And I hope you see the remix your own button. We're going to use Glitch. Glitch is a really great platform to practice code. The coolest thing is that we can easily share with each other. So we can show, if you make something cool, you can paste it in the chat. Show us what you made. You can also paste your own Glitch URL on your phone and just look at your own website on your phone. Okay, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to remix this thing. I think it will work if I don't log in. So this is the workshop. Remix your own. I hope you guys see the same thing. What we see here is a project that has 4 files. The README is just an explanation. The index.html is the actual web page. And this is what we see on the right side. So the index.html is this part. This is just standard HTML. There's nothing strange about it. These 2 lines are important because it loads our CSS and our script. And then this is just the ML5 workshop. What day is today? 19 October. If you type in your HTML, you can see it will automatically refresh on the right side. That's something we're going to switch off, to be honest. You can do that here. If you click here, you can also give your project a name. My ML5 experiment. Experiment, not ML4. And you're going to have to switch off this refresh up on changes. The reason is that we're going to load a model, a machine learning model, and if we refresh that every time for every little change, it gets a bit annoying because it keeps reloading the same model. So now you have to click the refresh button if you change something. So if I remove this again, it will stay here until I refresh. Okay, so this is our site. There's an input here where you can upload an image. And there's a message field here where you can show a message to the user. I'm still loading. So this is all that we have, that we start with. The goal is to classify an image that the user uploads. Let's look at the script, what we have now. You can see there are 4 variables. One is the message, which is this part. This is called the message. There's a file button, which is this button. There's an image apparently, but we don't see it. We can see it here. Here's the image, but it's empty. And there's a synthesizer, which is not really necessary, but it's quite funny because it will allow our application to talk to us. I think that works really well for artificial intelligence apps because it's actually thinking. And when it's also talking, for some reason that works really well, I think. Okay, what happens here is that once you click on the file, then a file is loaded. So that's what I meant with those functions. This function is called when someone clicks on this button. And then the image is set to the image that you've chosen. So this should actually work already. I'm going to try it. I'm going to click an image. There's my image. It's quite big, so if you want, you could even make it smaller in the CSS file. I'm not sure why it's so big. 100%. Doesn't seem to be working. But it's not that important. We have an image here. You see the code already works. The image was loaded, is shown here. That's also quite important. This part, this function is called when the image is finished loading. That's very important because we want to use the machine learning. And we can only do that when the image is ready. So this function gets called when the image has finished loading. I hope that's doable so far, because now we're gonna go to this website, the image classifier on ML5, and we're gonna just copy paste their code and see how far we get. There's a quick start. What it says here, the first line, we can just copy everything line by line. This says, okay, I want to have an image classifier. The variable name for it is classifier. You can name it whatever you want. And here it says it is the image classifier of ML5. Okay, so there's the first problem. ML5 is not standard available, so we have to load it first. And let's see how we do it. Getting started, setup. Okay. we have to load ML5 actually, which is this line of code. I found it here on the hello, a gentle introduction to ML5. If you click getting started, quick start, this is even easier. You can copy this to the clipboard. So getting started, this will load the Ml5 library. So I'm going to paste it here in my index. If I'm going too fast, just shout in the chat. Now I'm loading Ml5. You have to put it in the head of your code. Okay. Then we go back to the image classifier. Now we know that Ml5 is there. So we can load, let's just copy those 4 lines of code. It says, okay, I want to have an image classifier. And I want to know when it's finished loading, because then this function will get called model loaded. So I'm going to paste that part also in my code, in my script. Let's put it above the speak. Speak is not very important. I'm going to put it all the way down. Now I'm making the classifier. I always put everything that's not a function above all the stuff that is a function. It looks a bit tidier, I think. So now we have 3 functions. This is called when someone clicks the image button. This is called when the image is finished loading. And this is called when the model has finished loading. We can check if that worked. Let's put it in the message box. So I'm saying message.inner HTML model has loaded. And if I refresh now, the model should already start loading. And now you see it has loaded. So it takes a while, as you can see, because this model is actually quite big. It could be 2 MB. That's also a reason why we don't want to reload it every time we make a little change. So now the model has loaded, and we could use this to ask the user to upload an image. So now once the model has loaded, we can say, please upload an image of whatever you want, a hamster. That's the assignment. And let's make the default image, please wait, loading model, because that's what it's doing. Once the model has loaded, it will say, please upload an image of a hamster. Okay, let's see if it works. Yeah. Okay. So now the next part is I click this thing, then the image gets, this function gets called where I upload an image. When that finishes, this function gets called when the image is loaded, and then we want to classify it. So that's the last part. It's quite amazing, I think, how few lines of code we have here. I'll share my code so you can copy paste. I'm going to classify the image. So that's 3 lines of code. These 3. And we can call them, I hope you guys realized, after the image has loaded, which means here. So I'm going to put it here. So I just copy pasted these 3 lines from the quick start. All right, I'll go through everything step by step in a second. I just want to see if it works, and then we can go over it from the start. What happens here is the classifier is going to classify an image, and here we have to say what image. Document get element by ID means that it's going to look inside our HTML file, but we already did that here, so we don't have to do it twice. This line of code means get the image from the HTML. This variable is used to store the image, and this, after our image has loaded, you can see it highlighted here. After we set a new source, that part has loaded a new image. Then we give this image to the classifier. And then it's gonna log the results in the console, and we can also put it in the message. Okay, so one more time. I can also copy, I think you can see my experiment because this is the URL. I think you can just see my code if I paste this here. For those who got stuck, this is just what I'm doing right now. Okay, so one more time. The file button listens if I click on this button. If I do, this function gets called, which uploads an image. What we're also doing is making an image classifier. We're using this variable classifier. You can call it whatever you want, hamster classifier. That doesn't really matter what you call it, it's just a variable name. But what we store in there is the image classifier of ML5. Here you say, what model do you want? There are actually different ones. This one is very good for pictures, for photos. And once it has loaded, we call the model loaded function, which is this one. And once the model has loaded, we use message.innerHTML to give an assignment to the user. And message, you can see it highlighted here, is the part of our HTML, which is this one, this div. So this is just a block where you can communicate with the user of your application. Any text you put in here will appear here. All right, once you give an assignment, the user is going to upload an image. When the image has loaded, we enter this function here. Image was loaded. Then the classifier will be called. The classifier will need an image, which is this variable. You could do it like this, just get the image directly from the HTML, get element by ID image. This will also give you the image from the HTML. Maybe this is quite a lot if you're not used to JavaScript and HTML at all. This is how you get the connection from HTML to your code. The one thing to try to understand is this one line will load the classifier. When the classifier is loaded, we go here. This just gives us a notification that it's ready. When someone uploads an image, then this gets called. And then we use the classifier, which we loaded here, to classify an image. And this image is from the HTML. And that will give us a result. And we're going to put the result in the console. I'll show you what that is in a minute. And we also use it to show the result in this message box. Okay. We're going to try it in a different way. We're going to use the show button. And we're going to say in a new window, which is cool, because now you get a shareable URL, this one, which you can actually share with us if you get stuck. So we can also look at your code. And I'm going to open the console. The console is here. If you right-click the document and you click Inspect Element or Inspect in Chrome, there's a console. So you get elements, then you see the HTML. But what we want is the console, which will give us messages. You can actually see here that ML5 was loaded with all the rainbows. You can see the model is loaded because we had the console log. And this is the moment of truth. We're going to see what happens if we give this hamster image to the classifier. And for me, it works right away. You can see here, the results appear in the console. It says label hamster, confidence 224. Label fox squirrel, confidence 06, 6% confident that it's a fox, 4% confident it's a weasel, and 22% confidence that it's a hamster. I wonder if you guys have this as well. No? Uploaded a photo of books. Does it tell you it's books? Do you see what label do you get in the console?
Or just get objects.
Yeah. That's what you see here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll explain that part. That's why I wanted to use the console as well. The console shows us everything that is told us by the classifier. And what you can see that it's actually an array, and the array has objects. And the array,
Okay.
yeah, so we want not all the objects from the array, but only the first one.
Okay.
So let's do that. So instead of putting the results, all the results in a message, you can say, no, I only want the first result, results 0 with square brackets. And the first one is always the one with the highest confidence.
Oh, okay, I got it. Now I just have to open what I said array and it said bookcase.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
But we can show that in the div by doing results 0 and then dot label. So this part should only show the bookcase. I can throw it in the chat. Model. Hamster. Hey.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do with this what you want. You can say, I think it's a hamster, which is more funny. I think it's a hamster. You can do it like this. You could even include the confidence. You could say I'm results, the first result, then the confidence. % sure. I'll paste this in the chat. I think it's a hamster. I'm this % sure. Okay, let's see. Oh, I have to refresh. Let's try something else. I think it's a fox squirrel, eastern fox squirrel or tiger.
It's a capybara.
Yeah, capybara is not recognized. This model was not trained on capybaras. Yeah, I'm gonna remove the confidence. The fun part of this speak function, that's why I included it, is you can make the browser speak what it thinks. And you can actually simply do that by putting this line, sending this line to the speak function. So you can say speak and then speak what it says, thinks. And then it will start talking to you, which I think is always a bit uncanny.
I think it's a flatworm.
I think it's a flatworm, okay. I hope you guys can, I wonder if this is working for you. I don't think mine is working. You can share your code if you want. Ivailo. I think if you just copy paste your own URL, like what I'm doing now, and paste it in the chat, we can look at your project, see what's going wrong. Ah, okay. Okay, is this yours? Yeah, okay, let's see what's different. Model loaded, console log model loaded. Yeah, you make this mistake that these 3 lines of code will not work when the model is not loaded. So that's why I actually added that slide, which was quite hard to explain, I think. You can only classify something with the classifier once the model is loaded. And in your case, you're not waiting for the model to load. So these 3 lines will not work because the model has not finished loading. That's why you have to put them inside this function. Or actually inside this function, because we also have to wait till the image is loaded. And now you are classifying something that is not there. So in your case, I think this is what most people struggle with. So it's good that you show this. This doesn't work for two reasons. First of all, this classifier has not finished loading. Second of all, this image also has not finished loading. And that's why I put these 3 lines inside this function. So I'll copy paste my part. My whole user image uploaded. I think you can just see it if you click here. The classifier part has to be inside the user image uploaded function. As you can see, the problem is more with logic than actual code. The code is just 4 lines. It's only this. The thing is, you have to be sure when the model has loaded, finished loading. And if the user uploads an image, you also have to be sure that the image has finished uploading. And this should result in this code. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this? Is it clear to you what is happening? So if you look at here at the Ml5 website, the image classifier. Have you tried anything? Cool image, what can it recognize and what can it not recognize? We have seen a bookcase. What else? What do you guys think it can recognize? Television set. Your art installation is a television set. And why would that be, do you think? Why would it think that? Mountain bike, all-terrain bike. But I think the cloud is a geyser, okay? And Manu, what is a mountain bike? Did you show a picture of a bicycle? Did that work? One thing to know is that since we are working with pre-trained models, you have to realize that someone trained this model, not we, someone else did that. And that means that it will probably not have very specific images. For example, it won't recognize you or me. Yeah, perspective and light. Absolutely, that makes a lot of difference. But also, yeah, how specific it is. Good question. Is it still getting trained when we use it? That's actually not the case. So this has been trained. If you look at the MobileNet GitHub, well, what's the thing? Oh, I clicked and wow, shortcut that did something very strange. MobileNet GitHub. This is a model and we're not retraining it. This already there, we can choose to load a bigger model, then it will recognize more, but we cannot retrain it. But it's a good question because if we want to retrain it, for example, if we want to recognize our students or our own hamster or our own cat, you could make a classifier that recognizes when your cat wants to go inside. but not someone else's cat. If you want that, you have to retrain it. You can do that with the feature extraction. And I think we might do that in the next workshop, because that's the next level. But what this does is it adds more images to an existing model. But it is possible, so that's the way to go if you want to train something. Today, we're not training models. We're just using models that have already been made by someone else. So we're quite dependent on what they use to train the model. Ah, someone made their result. Ah, cool. I think it's a mountain, but that's great. That seems to work, right? Cool. Okay. That was the first part of the workshop. In this part, I wanted to introduce you to how to load ML5. We did that just with this one line of code. This one line loaded our Ml5 library. So now you know how to do that. And then we looked at the image classifier. And now I really wanted you to learn, first of all, that you can load a classifier like this, but also that you have to wait till the model is loaded, which you can do with the function. And then this code is actually wrong, which I think is very strange. This code will actually not work because here we're not waiting for the model to load. So these lines have to go in here. And you really have to wait till the model has loaded before you can classify something. So I hope you learned that much as well. And yeah, what happens here? We load a model and then we use classify. Classify means tell us what it is. And this is the way to get an image from an HTML document. I want to encourage you to try it on your phone. You now have an URL. In this case, it's this one for me. And open it on your phone. I think it's really cool because you can use the phone camera to take a live photo. So you could actually make a game with this. If you open it on your phone, you could give a score. If someone takes a picture within 5 seconds of something you tell them to, you can check if they did it, and you will have a game. Okay. Let's see, where's my presentation? Never find it back. Yeah. Is this clear to you? Are you guys happy? Oh, there's another capture. I think it's a mask. It's neither a shark nor a horse. I'm disappointed that it was not recognized. Cool. If everyone got this working, or maybe we can have a small break of 5 minutes and then continue with the next part. Maybe that's a good idea. So we'll take a small break, 5 minutes. I'm gonna get a tea and then we're gonna start the pose classifier. Pose detection, I should say. With my phone, I think my keyboard is a shower curtain. I was quite surprised because when I make a picture of my monitor, something on my monitor, it's still recognized as a monitor.
Okay.
Shower curtain, okay. But it works with the phone, right? You can make photos. Yeah, I think that's amazing. Yeah. The pose detection is comparable to what we did. So if we go to the Ml5 website, we have the image classifier. Now we're just gonna go to the pose net. And what this does is quite comparable to what we already did. It's gonna load a model. It's the same kind of code that we already had, but now it's ml5.posenet. And we have the same problem. We have to wait till the model is loaded. So someone already made a model that can detect poses of your body. We only have to load this model. Once it's loaded, this function gets called. And what this line of code does, it's gonna tell the PoseNet that every time a pose is detected, then the results have to be saved in a variable. So that's what happens here. I'm gonna go through it from top to bottom. We get a video element because it works for images. We could upload a hamster image and see what happens. But it's nicer if we use a webcam because the pose can constantly change. So in this case, we're going to use a video element. We just store it in this variable. We also have the PoseNet variable, which has the PoseNet in it. We're also going to use a variable, poses. And every time our PoseNet, which we loaded here, every time this PoseNet detects a pose in the video, which is given to it here, then the variable poses will hold the results. And we're going to see later why we need it like this. But this is what we're going to use. I can close this one. I can close this. So we can start with the part 2 of pose detection, ML5 workshop 2. I'm going to do it myself. Copy the link. I'm going to open it in Chrome this time. It's a bit more reliable. I'm going to remix it. Thanks for the link. Remix another. Now it's called Zippy Ordinary Theater. That's going to be my pose starter project. Yeah, I can see myself twice already. I hope you guys have the same thing. I'm going to go through the HTML, which is almost nothing. We have this message block, same as in the last practice, which means we can tell the user information, in this case, that we're loading. There's a video, which captures our webcam. And there's also a canvas. And a canvas is really just an image. And in this case, the image is coming also from the video. I'll show you why this is later. But what you have to know now is the video captures our webcam. This is how you can get a user's webcam. And a canvas is a way to draw in your browser. And we're going to need to draw because we want to draw the skeleton, the body pose. That's why we need the canvas. If that works for everyone, we can actually hide the video. I think it's not really necessary that the video is constantly visible. So I'm going to go to my style sheet. You can do it however you want. But in the style sheet, you can say video display none. And that means our video is not shown. Yeah, that's a good question. I actually had the same problem this afternoon. And that's why I added this camera debug JavaScript file. So for people who have several webcams, it's a bit complicated, I'm sorry to say, but there is code to detect which webcam there is. Yeah, that's great. You can do it. You can say style is display none. Figuring out the right webcam can be a bit painful, to be honest, but this is the code to do it. Yeah, so I hide the video with this in my style or you can do what Nadia did and just say style is display none. Both of these will hide the video. Now it's double hided. Okay. Let's go to the script. Let's see what's happening so far. Not much. We have the message div. We store it so we can later put some messages in there. We have the video element. We need it to capture the video stream. We have the canvas element to draw in. And this is actually how you draw in a canvas. So you need another variable called context, or CTX. You can call it what you want. And these two lines decide how we can draw. In this case, we say we have red lines and the lines are 3 pixels wide. You can do what you want here. This whole batch of code is only used to get your webcam. And if you have several webcams, it can be a bit problematic. That's when you can use this camera debug script. It's also quite important to know how big and how wide and how high your video is. In my case, it's 640 by 360. And I add those numbers here to draw the image into the canvas. And if you got some strange difference in your video and your canvas a while ago before you hide it, then these numbers may not be correct. So you have to look in the console what the resolution is of your webcam. And that's what you have to type here. In my case, it's 640, 360. That means 16 by 9. Mostly if it's 4 by 3, then it's 640 by 480. So this is 16:9. And you can check the console easily like this. Inspect, console, console again. Yes, with 1280, 720. This just means it's 16 by 9. Yeah, maybe you have the same problem if I know that you have several webcams set up. I had this problem this afternoon. And it's a bit of a pain because you can see what cameras you have with this script, but it will take you some time to figure out which one you need. Okay. Maybe we can look at your project later. Okay, we'll look at your code a bit later and see if you did something wrong or maybe your settings of your browser need some adjusting. I'm going to continue with this function. This is quite important. We have a function called draw camera into canvas. It does exactly what it says. It draws the video. This is the video. And it draws it into the context. So in context means this part here, the canvas. So we're saying, hey, this video we want to draw it in here. And then there's another magic line. This is really magic. This one says, wait 1/60th of a second and then call this function, which is the same function. So with this one line of code, this means this function gets called 60 times every second. You might say it's an animation. And that's why we see this moving, because otherwise it would just draw it once and then never again. But because it gets called 60 times every second, we can actually see the movement. So this is an image, which is quite weird. A canvas is just an image. but it's updated 60 times per second. So that's what's happening here. We're drawing ourselves. So that's the first part of our pose detection. And now we're gonna go to the second part, which means loading the model. Let's just copy this first. We already have this part. The video is getElementById. Let's see if we do. Yeah, we have it already. We don't have to copy that. So we're gonna copy this little part. Create the new PoseNet model and then tell us a message when it's loaded. Let's do it right at the beginning. Well, the console log, and we can also use our message, or in this case, it's called div. You can say div.innerHTML is PoseNet model loaded. So then we know it's loaded. Please take care of this part here, that you do not refresh. So this has to be switched off, refresh app on changes. Otherwise it will keep loading the model, which is annoying. Okay, I'm gonna refresh. And now it's loading the model. Yeah, and there it is. Now it's loaded. This is, I think this makes it quite clear why we need these callbacks in JavaScript, because we want the video to keep going. We don't want the video to stop. So the video keeps going, and in the background, the model is being loaded. Okay, once the model is loaded, we actually don't have to do anything because the pose model works a bit differently. What we do need is a variable that is going to keep track of our poses. We do it like this, let poses, that's it. This is a variable. This variable is going to contain our poses. When do we get a new pose? That's what those 3 lines of code do. So the last piece of the quick start, postnet.on. This means, okay, I don't know when we're going to get a pose, but once we do, I want you to store it in this variable. So once a pose is received from the postnet, this variable will be used to remember the pose. That's what those 3 lines do. So we made a variable here. This means we can always look in this variable to see if there are any poses. And this variable will get filled. I'm just going to paste it right here, right under the postnet is. This is actually also a callback. That's why we can put it outside of a function. This says, okay, I'm not sure when the model has loaded or when a pose is received, but when we do, then remember the pose in this variable. So this variable will remain empty until the model is loaded and a pose is detected. Okay. That's actually it. So this is even shorter than the image classifier. Of course, we're not doing anything with this variable right now. You can refresh it or open it in a different window just to see if you don't get any errors. No, it says model loaded. There's no error for me. So apparently that works. So the next step is to visualize these poses. I think it's quite helpful to see what even a pose is. So we're going to log it first. We have to find a place to do it. And let's look at this function, the draw camera into canvas. This gets called 60 times a second, right? So we could do it here. We could say, okay, I want you to log the pose in the console. Poses. In the beginning, this will be empty because there's nothing in it when the application starts. But after the model has loaded and a pose has been detected, it will be put in this variable. And that means in the beginning, the console log won't log anything, but after a while, we'll see poses appear here. What we could even do, maybe that's even better, is make it an empty array like this with 2 square brackets. That means this is an array with 0 poses in it. And we're just going to log it. That's all we do. Say let poses is an array with nothing in it. And then the draw into camera into canvas function will log this console, log this pose, into the console. So let's see what happens. I think this is the most interesting part. The most magical part. It's a bit choppy because it's loading the model and drawing 60 times a second. We can see that there is an array. Apparently something is in it, sometimes not. You can see if I move, something happens already. My microphone is too short. Let's open one with the brackets. And here we can see a pose. I'm gonna move a bit away. Wow, it's a bit annoying that it's empty. Here's a pose, I think. We have an array with 3 poses. Yeah, if you open it, it's a bit of a hassle. I hope it works better for you. If you click the tiny triangle in the console, we get something magical going on. A number of poses is found, apparently. And each pose has a key point. Key points, actually, and a skeleton. And this is quite important. There are a number of poses. To be honest, I don't understand why it's more than 1 because I'm all alone here. This is the number of people. Then we can click those triangles. And this is quite magical, I think. The pose variable actually tells us all the locations of our whole body. So ankle, elbow, left eye, left hip. There's also an array called key points, and this is actually the same. So these are the same things, but stored in a different way. So that's a bit easier. You can either look into the key points to find all the points, or you can look in the left eye, left hip, left shoulder to find those exact coordinates. So I hope you guys also get this. This means it's working. So we already have a pose model working. Yeah, I'm working on this code now, so you can see. Apparently this is my project, the Zippy Ordinary Theater. So you can copy paste it if you want and see if you get the console. If you get all the pose information in here. Okay. I'm going to close this one. All right, so the final part is to draw the actual pose, just to prove that it works. And you can also get the code for drawing from this example here. Yeah, I think it's in the bottom. You can click the plain JavaScript PoseNet webcam. It will lead you here. I'll paste this link in the chat and then here. You see it's the same as what we're doing almost. There is the draw camera into canvas. You see they have two functions that we don't have, which is draw the key points and draw the skeleton. So those two we're going to copy paste. So you can go to this URL, which is just part of ML5 example code. And you copy those two functions, draw key points and draw skeleton. I'm doing it this way so you can just realize what's going on, what's happening. Those two functions are going to draw into our canvas. So I'm just pasting it here. I'll walk you through it. The first function, draw key points, you can see it is going to loop through this poses array. And the array we made here, let poses is empty, and then it gets filled every time a pose is found. That's what happens here. So there are actually two important lines, line 11 and line 16. Then this draw key point function, which is not being called right now, we're going to call it. It loops through all the poses. And then for every pose it's found, it's going to loop through all the key points. And we just saw that in the console, remember? And for each key point, an ellipse is drawn in the context. So that's quite important. The key point is found. Then this line is also quite interesting. It checks the confidence. So with the hamster detection, we saw the confidence was 22% for the hamster. So apparently that's from 22% on, it's okay. Still sounds low, but we're gonna say, okay, if it's more than 20% chance that this is correct, then draw a circle. And these three lines, what they do is draw a circle. You don't have to memorize this. You can just copy paste it, but this is the way to draw a circle into a canvas. So we had the canvas here. This is our canvas element. We're drawing the video into the canvas. And now we're also going to draw the key points into the canvas. And for every key point, it's going to check if the confidence is bigger than 0.2, meaning that we have 20% chance that this is actually a good key point. And the skeleton actually works the same. It's going to walk through all the lines in the body and draw it. So all we need to do in this function is first draw the image, but then draw the key points. Draw key points, and then draw the skeleton. And this is going to happen 60 times per second. That's what you have to realize. This little function gets called 60 times every second. And those poses will array. This is an array of poses, and that will update automatically every time a new pose is found in the video stream. So I'm going to try if it works. Loading model. Yeah, there we go. It's perfect. This is really good. It worked better in the dark. in the daytime, it was a bit. You can see it also finds my nose, eyes, and ears. I'm a robot. Yeah, this is really good, actually. All right. Is this working for everyone? No? We're getting stuck. You can share your project and we can look at it. Animated lunar ceramic. Copy. No. I now have 5 applications using my camera. Apparently that's allowed. Yay, PostNet model loaded. Okay, thank you for being here, Martha. Hope you enjoyed it. Well, you have to see, can you share the project itself? So if you just click here in the editor, then we can see your whole code. Yeah. The animated lunar ceramic. Okay. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna have to. Don't see anything weird, to be honest. And does the camera work at all if you leave out those 2 lines? I have to remix it, I think.
I solved that. It works now. Thanks.
Okay, cool. What was the problem?
I had commented out this like draw camera into canvas because I thought it was double, but obviously one is like calling the function and defining it or whatever. I don't really understand why it needs to be there twice, but apparently it does.
3 times, yeah, 3 times.
Why? Can
Well,
you explain this to me so I don't do it again?
Of course, yeah. So we start, actually it would be best to put this one all at the bottom. But okay, so we start by defining some variables. And then there are some functions. But if you don't have this line 48, then this one never gets called. So you have to call it at least once. That's what line 48 does. It starts this function. Yeah. And once it gets started, it comes into the line 41, it draws the image, then it goes to 42, it draws the key points and the skeleton. And this is the magic line, 44. This one waits 1/60th of a second. It's actually a pause. And then it calls this function, which is itself. And that means that after 1/60th of a second, all this will happen again. So it's actually a function that calls itself. That's why it's a loop. You could call this the game loop. And for example, if you have game software, it would be the update function. This is what gets called 60 times a second because it calls itself. But if you don't call it at least once, then it doesn't start. I hope that clarifies it. I haven't heard a big aha. maybe this helps. If we look at MDN, you can always go to MDN for JavaScript explanation, or even the 3 schools. You type request animation frame. Example, this is a bit of a convoluted example, to be honest. But there is a function step, and here it calls itself, so it keeps stepping. Yeah. Maybe the other one is even better, the CSS tricks. You can read this if you want to understand why this causes an animation. This is the simplest possible example. There's a function called repeat often. Then you do what you want. And here you call the function again itself. But you wait 1/60th of a second. To start the whole thing off, you have to call it at least once. You can do it like this, then you also wait 1/60th of a second before calling it, or you can just call it directly. And this is how you build animation in JavaScript. So animation is quite important. So it's important to understand this little part here. This is what allows us to do something every 60th part of a second. Okay. I want to play with this just a little bit before ending the workshop. Let's just do something funny. Let's not draw the image. So we are drawing the skeleton and the key points, but not the image. And this should be quite a funny, unexpected result. I just comment the image. I wonder if you guys get the same result. We're drawing. What happens here is that something you didn't realize when we keep drawing the video is that the canvas actually does not refresh itself. It just draws over itself. It's an image. It's like a screenshot, really. And you draw on it. If you draw a big white box in it or a video image, then it looks like it's a moving circle, but it's actually not a moving circle. The circle is drawn every frame. The old circle is still there if you don't remove it. So you can use that for a painting effect. In this case, if we keep drawing the image over this old circle, then it just looks like the image is moving, but in reality, that's not true. Canvas is really a canvas. It's like a painting where you keep painting over the old painting. So it's like there are already hundreds and hundreds of images in there, all drawn on top of each other. And you can play with this. So could we make all the key points that fade out? Yeah, that's we can try to fade it out. Let's also play a bit with the color. I'm gonna remove the skeleton. Let's update the color every frame, so we can see a bit better that it's changing. So here we say stroke style is red. Now let's make a fill style. Fill style is the fill color. And let's not say red, but actually an RGB value. Let's say red 255, green 0, blue 0. This is our fill color. I'll paste it in the chat. Then these key points, I'm gonna, instead of stroke, I'm gonna say fill. So then it's going to fill the circle instead of drawing a line. And now I want to update the color before I draw them. So that was this. Contact canvas fill style is RGB. And let's say I want to update this number to 55. You do it like this, $ and quotes, and then we can use a variable. I'll paste this. What I'm doing is I'm gonna use a variable called red value to decide how red the circle is going to be. Since this is a variable, I have to declare it somewhere. You do this at the top. You can do it here. Let red value, let's say we start at 255, or let's start at 0. Since this one is called 60 times a second, I can add something here. I'm going to say red value plus plus, which means add 1 to our red value. It cannot be higher than 255, so I have to check. There's no build. Yeah, that's a problem indeed. It doesn't go slower than 60 frames per second. If red value bigger than 255, then red value is 0. So my whole code now looks like this. Okay, let's refresh it. Okay. Yeah, it's getting redder, and then it goes black again. So you can get a bit more painting effect already. Let's see if we can get a fade effect. If you want to fade the old circles out, what you actually do is draw a big white block over everything that is very transparent. So to do that, I'm going to find out how to draw a rectangle. You can just say MDN canvas rectangle. No, I just Google everything these days. There we are. You can make a rectangle with height and XY, and then say fill. I'll paste this link as well. Programming is just Googling these days. Okay, let's do that before we draw the circle. I'm going to start at 0. 0. I don't remember how big was my video. 640, 360, I believe. And we have to set the color, the fill color. And let's say white. I'm not sure if transparency works like that. We're going to find out. We're going to make a white block, and then we're going to say it's only 0 to 10% transparent. Not sure if this works, but we're going to find out. Yep. Wow, that looks really magical. Let's make it even more transparent so the trail stays a bit longer. more. 0.01. Okay, that's apparently too small, but it works. You could do a lot more with this. You could say, detect how far from the camera the person is. You could do that by checking how far the eyes are from each other, or how far the shoulder points are from each other. So that means how far the user is from the camera. I'm getting a nice shadow image now. I want to show one more thing before we end. I was planning to make a game with this. I'll show you the start code of the game, and then I'll show you how you could have done it if we had time. Let's see. If I go to glitch. I have a game here, a Pong game. I'll paste it. This is code that draws a Pong bat in the canvas, and it draws a ball that bounces around. And when the ball hits a pedal, it bounces back. So this is already a working game, and it's already in canvas. So all we would really need to control this with the pose is to detect the wrist of the player. So I'm going to just do that here. I'm not going to integrate it with this code, but I'll just show you how to find the wrists. If you want, you could copy this game and make it controllable with body poses. For now, I'm just going to show you how to draw the wrists. Let's go to the key points. And now we're only going to draw the left and the right wrist. We're going through the poses. And here we stop. We're not going to do all the key points. So this part I'm going to comment out. No more key points, just the wrist. We already had the wrist when we logged it. Let's just be sure. Console.log poses 0. That's the first person. If you have more than one person, you can put a 1 here. Of that person, the pose. And from that pose, the left wrist. And let's also do that for the right wrist. Okay. I'll paste it in here. Let's just see if it works. It's, yeah, okay. That works apparently. There is wrist information. So you could use, if you want, let's just log the Y value. And here as well. We now have the Y value of the left wrist and the right wrist. You could just draw them. Let's end the workshop with this, just drawing the wrist. Those wrists also have a confidence. And then we can quit. If the left wrist.confidence is bigger than 0.2, draw it. The draw code is this. Also for the other wrist. The right wrist. I'm going really fast now, I realize that. But what I'm doing is I'm checking if the right wrist has confidence. And if it does, I'm going to draw a dot at the position of the wrist. There's still an error here. Oh yeah. I'm going to have to put that in a variable. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'll paste everything. I don't have to paste it. You can just always look in my project to see what I'm doing. Let's see if only the wrists are drawn now. Nope. Still have some error. Oh yeah, this shouldn't be here. Model is loaded. Yay, there are my wrists. So now only the wrists are drawn. And this could be your first step into controlling the Pong game. So these pedals need the eye position of your wrist. I'm not going to go into that because we are running out of time. And maybe this has been more than enough. But I hope that this shows you how much you can do with this detection and how to access the data, because that's quite important. Okay, so I'm gonna quit this. You can look at this code. I shared everything here. I hope you learned something about how ML5 works, how easy it actually is to get started up and running with just a little bit of example code. This is really all you need to get the pose detection working and to get the image classifier working. We've looked into the console to see what is actually coming back from our model. And we saw that there's always data in the array with objects, and there is a confidence. The confidence means how sure it is that it detected it correctly. And we've also seen that most of these libraries use pre-trained models. We cannot train it ourselves. Someone already did it. And we can only use what they told us to use. But for faces and hands, for example, that is often more than enough. You could not do this better. This Handpose training model is really good. Sometimes you do want something better, especially for images, if you want to recognize your own cat, for example, or if you want to know what pose someone is making. And let's see if my presentation is still somewhere. That was my idea. If we're going to do a second workshop, then that's what we're going to do. The next steps would be controlling the game. Let's see. This is what we could do. We could start training a model with ML5, which is actually possible. And we can also use these poses that we've used today as training data. So that's very interesting. We can train our model to recognize a body pose, for example, for a dancing game. What we could also do is look at the image classifier. And then the feature extractor, which means that you can actually retrain an existing model. And then we can use our own images. So there's a lot of things still to explore. There's even a neural network, which is also quite intriguing. At least I hope you learned how to apply ML5 for yourself and how to get some basics of JavaScript working with the Glitch project, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I hope you saw how powerful it can be. And that's my workshop for today.
Thank you, Erik.
Yay.
That was Amazing. Also, I know a lot more to explore, but like a lot to process to begin.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, definitely would just want to like spend more time fiddling with this and seeing how I go. For everyone else that's like spitting a little bit, we will share like a follow-up email with all the links that Erik shared and the examples. And there's also like videos online, like the coding train one that I think is really good. And you can pause him, you know, put him back 30 seconds and make him say the same thing 6 times until you get it. This is how I have to do it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
But yeah, I hope this was like a really good, at least introduction to see that, you know, there are things you can do with pretty basic sort of coding skills, and just going to the documentation and sort of going back and forth and putting your functions in the right order, and you know, just making your first steps into coding and doing ML in the browser. Before we wrap, maybe if anybody wants to like ask any questions or share anything, we're also quite a small group, so I see people already in the chat, but if anybody wants to unmute, then feel free. That's obviously really nice to see actual human faces.
I see Crystal, she's a student of mine actually.
Amazing.
Did you pick something up for today? Did you learn something?
Hi, yes, it was very useful, and I have actually a project on moves with dancing poses and stuff, so it's really good for my project.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm gonna use those things and start to practice to see if I can make a good project up with this.
Yeah, amazing. That would be great.
Do keep us updated.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Does anyone else have questions? Otherwise, we will wrap. Erik, can you see the chat, or shall I?
Yeah, I could see the chat, but it's
yeah. So there's lots of love coming through.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for joining, and maybe we'll do another one. So who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So let us know if you're interested. So we were thinking to do this as an introduction. And then maybe you could spend a bit of time like messing around with it, and then yeah, it would be really cool to do like a more advanced one with some of the things you mentioned earlier, Erik, and see if we can have a crack at those. For now, thank you so much for sharing your time and your enthusiasm with us.
Yeah, of course.
And your,
yeah, it's great.
Fun painting codes.
Thank you guys.
And yeah, if anything else, you can always reach us either over email, whatever, through the website. Like we'll host more of these like fun workshops about hopefully ML5 with Erik, but also other sort of accessible explorations of AI, and specifically sort of creative or like playful machine learning, rather than like trying to build, you know, really big sort of robust like problem solving systems. So if that's something you're interested in, connect with us somewhere. And thanks for being here. And also at the end of the day, always shout out to people, you know, still putting their brain to work from like 6 to 8 p.m. or wherever you are actually in a time zone. Thanks for being here and sharing also your time with us. And yeah, I think that's a wrap for today.
All right.
And if you have any questions, whatever, you can just unmute and ask and stick around. Erik, I don't know if you're already starving. If
No, I'll stick around.
If not, maybe anybody has more questions. And otherwise, I hope to see you guys at a future event. Or do share if you end up making something with ML5. Do tag us or tag Erik so we can see what this what this sort of initiated and what you end up making. Right. Samantha saying yes, definitely for the future workshop as well, Erik. I think we should just do it. I think,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think maybe, because you know how I put on the workshop graphic, I put like beginner friendly. Maybe on the next one I will put a little bit less beginner friendly. Or like make sure you've watched Coding Train 1 to 20 before you join here.
I think JavaScript is nice to know. I think you don't really need the ML5 knowledge, but some JavaScript knowledge is nice. But
yeah, or just like general experience with coding as well, because I've obviously only learned like in the past year or something, and so often my code just doesn't work because I put things in the wrong place.
Yeah, I think the callback concept is something you have to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
The quarter has to drop. Yeah.
Or even just like, oh, here's a function, here's a variable, here's a callback. You're like, hey, what? All these concepts to like, exactly, get a grip on.
Yeah, I noticed the Python notebook really goes from top to bottom, but JavaScript goes in all directions. It can be a bit confusing.
Exactly, and also in Python, because I often work in Colab or Jupyter, you actually work in like little blocks.
Yeah, and you can just rerun one block.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and JavaScript is a very different logic with that. So
JavaScript does so many things at the same time.
At once,
if this happens, then you have to go there, but then it's hard to, you have to wrap it in your head. You have to wrap your head around it. That's
understand how the computer works. Right. Well, I think we should definitely do a future one.
Yeah, it would be great.
About when to plan that. Let's do it sometime next month, because in December everyone's off the grid and just eating and consuming presents, stuff like that. So yeah, let's book in a date for sometime next month and see who's brave enough to join us again. Nice.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'm going to drop the call. Thank you again for being here, and very good night.